I'd like to call your attention and, if you will, your imagination to a day in August of 1855. And rather than, I'm going to direct you on where we're going rather than where we're starting. But the reason for picking August is by that time of the year, the fresh grain, wheat especially, would be coming off, would have been harvested, and you would have harvested the wheat by taking what's known as a scythe and a cradle and cutting it. And then someone else will come along behind you and bundle it up into sheaths. Then another couple of people will come along behind you with forks and throw them onto wagons pulled by horses and take it off to be threshed. the farmers, as they would harvest the wheat, they would all get together. Their hands, and if they had slaves, they used them. You started at Farmer X, did his wheat, then you moved to Farmer Y, did his wheat. And when lunchtime came, the ladies from the neighborhood came to whichever farm you were harvesting, and they cooked dinner. And I was fortunate enough to sit in on a couple of those thrashermen's dinners as I was a preschooler. But it was the fellowship, the jokes and all, and the aggravation and the foibles and such. But coming to the mill, the grain, you go to the wagon would offload the milk first to the creamery to keep it cool, then off to the side, they dump the wheat through one of the ports to go into the hopper, to the elevators, to go into the burrs to be ground and sacked and put back on the wagon at the dock. And this could take the better part of a day, because if somebody was there, it was on a first come, first served basis, and you waited your turn and sat around. I'm certain they probably had a jug of certain spirits under the seat on the buckboard of the wagon, whatever they were using to haul the grain and the milk, and they probably shared it. And if there was enough of it to go around, it might even have affected the cost of milling the grain. But I can't say that for certain. And most likely you would have had fresh milk and fresh cream that you put on several 25-gallon milk cans, metal cans of milk, unseparated, and go off to the Haines mill. Because the reason for taking the milk, there was also a creamery there. So not only would you be getting your milk churned, the cream separated and churned into butter and milk and buttermilk and such, but you'd be getting your wheat ground for flour, and you'd be meeting the rest of the neighbors and getting caught up on the latest gossip. That is what you hadn't heard about in the fields. Okay. Now we've gotten the grain ground and we're getting ready to leave Feagan's mill after a day of chatter and work and everything else. But we got one more stop we got to make with the horses and wagons because we have the fleeces on the wagon from the shearing of the sheep, which that was a job in and of itself with the hand shearers and all that, but that's another story. Right down the road on our way home is the Job's Woolen Mill, wool factory. So we make a stop there, and like Feagan's Mill, it's pretty busy, but people don't gather there as much as they do at the grist mills because you leave your fleece off and then you come back later on after it's been cleaned, carded, spun, and woven into the blankets or bolts of cloth or whatever, and you pick it up later on, pay for it, and go home. So we got to drop the fleeces off. Now after we've done that, we're ready to go home. Now, something about the thrashing of the grain, as I mentioned before, harvesting the grains on the farms in Jefferson County, like most communities around the country, was a community affair. Everyone helped everyone else. Farmer X helped all the other farmers in the area helped Farmer X harvest his, and they worked. The threshing crews worked up the road, farm after farm, and their hired help. And in the case of those who had slaves, the slaves were involved in it as well. When mealtime came, all the thrashing help, all the field help, went into the main house where the ladies from the neighborhood, all the farm ladies and their daughters, had prepared a lunch, and it was nothing to sneeze at. If you went away hungry, it was your own fault. Now, the white threshermen and field hands ate at the main dining table in either the kitchen, which were huge in many of those houses, or the main dining room. The black help ate on the back porch or outside. Now, I was involved in, before the days, the combination harvester thrashers called combines now were coming into vogue. But I still remember a few of these neighborhood threshings. I remember going to as my mother was helping with the lunch preparations, and like described in our day in 1855, this goes up to 1955, that the white help went into the main house, ate dinner at the main dining table, and the black help had their dinner on the back porch. Well, now, you've heard it said that little children are supposed to be seen and not heard. And these ladies made sure we understood that. And it wasn't very long before I learned that it was far more interesting to be out on the back porch with the black help having lunch than in the main dining room with the white help. And they had stories to tell and jokes to tell and such, and it was amusing. And they also had their music. And these fellows would jive with each other. What I came to know were called race records, and that is black music, recorded music, that was lyrics were too earthy for white audiences. Now the difficulty came when I started to mimic some of these songs and parodies. This did not go over well with the ladies at all, and I ended up getting persuaded on the back of my pants that this was not the thing to do. I still haven't forgotten some of those lyrics, but they're kind of interesting. Which all goes to the day that I really became aware of a difference between black and white. And my sister was taking dancing lessons because my mother couldn't pick us up that particular afternoon. My grandfather did. And on the way home in his Dodge pickup, single-seat truck, unlike these multi-cab jobs, seat cab jobs now we have, we're really supposed to have more than 3 people in the cab of the truck, but that was look the other way. On the way out 340, right there on the edge of town near the Perry farm, this black man was hitchhiking in a driving rainstorm. Granddad knew him and he stopped, and my sister and I were going to slide over and make room for him in the cab. Granddad says, "No, just get on the back." And as he got on the back, Granddad pulled away in the truck. He looks at us and says, "No sense crowding that nigger in here with us." Now, even at 7 years old, I realized that It was just as wet back there for him as it was for us, and though it would have been crowded, 4 of us could have sat in that cab without any problem. But yet, why was this being done? And there was no explanation.